up and walk in the storm. So, I went solo winter backpacking last weekend, and as you can tell, it did not end well, but I'm here alive and well, which I'm very, very grateful for, and I definitely learned a lot from this experience. This was one of my best and worst backpacking trips I've ever done. The first 12 hours were wonderful before things took a turn. I'd wanted to backpack this lake for over a year now, and it's one of my favorite places in all of California, so let's start there. I am so happy to be back in one of my favorite places in the entire world, the Tahoe area. Today, I am solo winter backpacking. It is a beautiful day. It's a high of around 40 or 50, sunny, clear, around 9,000 feet elevation. I made sure to drink plenty of water. It's just a short hike, maybe about 2.5 miles, because I do have a couple concerns for camping tonight. And if either of these two concerns become even more of a concern, I want to be able to hike back out to my car and camp in my car instead. One, it's early March and I've seen videos of hibernating bears in Tahoe waking up, so I'm a little nervous because I can imagine that when bears wake up from hibernation, they're really hungry. If it's anything like me, it's gonna be very hangry, and I don't want to run into a hangry bear. My second concern is also being too cold. Tonight it says it's supposed to be around 22 degrees. 22 I can do. If the feels like weather is anything below 20 degrees, I will hike back out because that's too cold for me. My pack has gotta be at least 35-40 pounds. Because this trip is so short, I packed everything. I didn't even try to be ultralight. I even brought a snow shovel. Why not? It's fun. And if anything comes in the middle of the night, I can whack. Oh geez, it's so bright. Ah. Oh my goodness. Not even half a mile in and I'm so out of breath. I'm starting to sweat. One thing you want to make sure of if you're backpacking in the winter, you do not want to sweat because that means moisture, which means cold. Right now it feels warm, but once I sit down, get still, the moisture will quickly freeze and then I'll be really cold. So always try to take off layers when you can. Yeah. Okay, update. I'm half a mile in. I'm hella out of breath, which means I have to get in shape before the summer. But yeah, mostly it's that altitude that's killing me. I'm just very sensitive to altitude, so I'm just taking it step by step slowly. Just came up a big hill, so I'm catching my breath. But it's very peaceful here. I don't know where everyone went. The parking lot was full, but I haven't really seen anyone. Okay, let's keep going. It is quite warm today. This is really, definitely type 2 fun. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so happy. What the heck? It's so gorgeous here. So if you've been following me since the beginning of my channel, you might recognize this clearing. I came here last winter, but I didn't get to camp overnight. This has been a goal of mine for so long. It's so stunning. The snow is so powdery, and this wilderness is so different from Washington. If you're new to my channel, you probably know I live in Western Washington, but I only moved there in the fall. I used to live in Northern California for 2 years. Wasn't my favorite, but I absolutely loved the nature and I miss it so much. I do kind of want to live in Tahoe for a few months at some point. Tahoe is one of my favorite places on earth. I love it so much. So this place has special meaning to me and I'm stoked to be here. My heart is very happy. I feel at home. That was a really good workout. I made it to the lake I wanted to make it to. I could go further to a second lake, but I don't have it in me. This altitude is really getting to me, so I think I will camp at this lake tonight. It's 1 p.m. Usually I would have gotten to the trail probably at 1 p.m., but this snow park fills up really quickly and I was really worried about not getting parking. Now I have the whole afternoon to myself. The sun feels so good. In the sun it feels like it's 70 degrees. I feel like I'm getting tan. I can feel my back burning. Yeah, I think I am going to walk around this lake and scout out a place I want to camp tonight. I am looking for a flat spot that is not at risk of being in the way of any possible avalanche. There's no big hills here, but there are some small ones, and since I'm using a 3-season tent instead of a 4-season tent, I don't want to risk any snow getting on me. So I'm not going to pitch under a tree with snow either, although all of these trees, the snow has pretty much melted off all of them. I haven't seen any signs of wildlife besides like birds, so hopefully it stays that way. Oh, that light breeze feels really nice. I did bring lunch. I brought banana bread and some Cliff Bars, and then for dinner tonight I'm gonna make a dehydrated meal. I downloaded a podcast and a couple episodes of White Lotus and a comedy because when I'm solo backpacking I really can't watch anything serious because it freaks me out at night, so I have to watch something comedic and really lighthearted. I think the last solo backpacking video I made I watched Shrek, and ironically I am watching Shrek 3 or 4 or something tonight again. I guess I'm consistent at least, right? But wow, it is so gorgeous. If I'm sleeping somewhere, I usually eat across the lake or like 1/3 across the lake from where I'm sleeping. And basically you want to store your food as far away as you would like a bear to be. I've heard people talk about like the triangle method. So you sleep here, you store your food here, and then you eat over here. So the reason things went really wrong is all because of this one moment right here where I made an almost fatal mistake. Looks like I found where I want to camp tonight. I didn't capture it in the vlog, but I spent a solid chunk of time trying to figure out where to pitch my tent around this lake. The problem is this lake is almost entirely on a very exposed region of this pass, almost entirely on a ridge. And if you camp, you probably know that you should never pitch your tent on a ridge due to the potential for bad weather, wind, thunderstorms in the summer, or snowstorms in the winter. The mistake I made though was thinking I had checked the forecast before hiking in and it had predicted 0 wind, no precipitation. And up until that point, I had experienced no wind, a clear, sunny day. And I've gone on a lot of solo trips and I've never pitched my tent in such an exposed region. But I made the mistake of deciding this time that it's always been fine in the past and the forecast said no wind, so it should be fine for tonight, right? Wrong. I'll talk about this more later in this video, but I wanted to stress the importance of not taking risks, especially when you're solo backpacking. It was very uncharacteristic of me to decide this. It's something I really regret because it put not only me in danger, but potentially others in danger if they had to come and rescue me. So let's continue. So I wanted to thank Setpower for sending me this portable electric cooler slash fridge slash freezer. This is the Setpower RF25 12 volt electric cooler in the 27 quart size. It can act as either a fridge or a freezer. What I like about this cooler is you can set the temperature manually in either Fahrenheit or Celsius, and you can even control it from a phone app. It's a perfect size to bring car camping, which I'm personally excited about because now I don't have to worry about my ice packs thawing in the summer. I just connect it to my Jackery and it runs very efficiently and will definitely last me for my 3-day camping trips over the summer. This cooler comes with a divider and a shelf for your ice tray, so I like how I can keep things very organized. This fridge quickly cools within 15 minutes, and if you lose power, it'll keep your food cold for 50 hours. I used this on my last car camping trip, and throughout the night it was silent, and it fits so well in the backseat of my car, which I'm very happy about. Thank you again, Setpower, for sending this fridge to me. And if you're interested in checking out this fridge, I'll leave a link in the description for 12% off. Wait, wrong channel. One of the most important things when you winter camp is your sleep system. I am touching the ground right now, and the ground is so cold, and you do not want to be laying on this cold ground all night. And so I have a winter sleeping pad. I forget the R value, but the R value basically is the insulation or the warmth. These values, they stack, and so if you stack 2 sleeping pads on top of one another, the warmth of each will add. The altitude is really getting to me. I really need to nap. Honestly, I'm not feeling that great. I'm hoping with an afternoon nap, it'll recharge me. Also, one of the most important things is to decompress your sleeping bag before you go to bed, because it lets it fluff up and all the feathers distribute, the material distributes, so it warms you evenly throughout the night. Otherwise, there are going to be pockets of cold air. I'm really hoping that I'm warm enough tonight, because hiking back out in the dark, I freaking hate that. I hate hiking in the dark unless I'm with people. The wilderness here is so beautiful, and I just want to soak it all in during the day. And then the second it gets dark, I'm terrified. The anxiety does get easier with time, especially when I get to a campsite early and can just feel really at peace before the sun goes down. I do still struggle with anxiety, but it gets better with exposure, like exposure therapy basically. And my anxiety around wildlife, even though I'm way more likely to die by the weather or falling or an avalanche or something, but I do, like a lot of people, get anxiety about wildlife, and it's gotten so much better over the past year. It's weird. It's like for some reason I've delusionally convinced myself that if I did encounter a bear at night, I could totally fight it off, which I don't know if I can. I think I can scare it off probably. If there is wildlife that I need to scare off, don't you think blasting like gasolina or something would scare wildlife off? Like, that's such aggressive music, right? I also have bear spray, a bear horn. The altitude really is getting to me. Like, if I bend over and stand back up, I feel insanely lightheaded. So I think I just need to take an afternoon nap. And the good thing about my campsite is I'm directly in the sun, and my tent just absorbs heat like no other. So inside the tent, it's freaking hot. Clip bar. I told you I didn't go ultralight. I even brought a pillow. Welcome to my humble abode for the evening. It is a one-person tent. At my feet, we have my backpack and my water bladder inside, so I've just been sipping from that. Have my 0-degree sleeping bag, and at the head of the bed, I stuff all my random items. Here's a pillow. It straps onto the sleeping pad. The waterproof mittens I plan to use tonight. My fleece. Some warm leggings to sleep in, because I like to have a change of clothes for the evening so I'm not sleeping in wet clothes. iPad. Phone. Glove liners. Here we have a nightlight pocket. So I put my headlamp up here, and then it has this nice orange glow through here. I have my bear horn in case I need it in the middle of the night. My pocket knife. Outside, I have my sit pad. Some water that I plan to boil tonight to put in my sleeping bag and keep me warm. It's also already filtered, so I can drink from it or cook from it. I have my gaiters drying out, and then my stove and fuel. Just a note, if you didn't know this, bear spray, if it freezes, is basically useless. So when it's cold out, I put my bear spray in this convenient pocket in my 0-degree sleeping bag. I also put anything else I don't want to freeze in my sleeping bag. So tonight I'll put in my phone, like I said, the hot water bottle to keep me warm, and my camera batteries. While I have you here, I just want to say thank you so much for those of you who watch my channel. I really appreciate it. I know my last few videos have been different from what they were before. I guess this is just my creative journey, and I really love making the videos that I've been making recently. It makes my heart very, very happy. It feels truly like me. With every video, I'm getting closer and closer to expressing myself creatively in a way that is so true to me. And so it's very special when all of you watch it and enjoy it too, because I want all of us to just be able to watch these videos and have them as a happy place. And I'm really glad that more and more I'm able to be myself and learn what that is creatively and have you guys just enjoy watching it. It means, I'm not just saying this as a phrase, it literally means the world to me. I finally feel like I've found my passion. It makes me truly happy. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'm awake. It's 4 p.m. I've never gotten to camp this early before, and I'm debating making dinner now. I just checked this temperature gauge, and it says it's over 80 degrees Fahrenheit in this tent. I don't understand. I'm wearing 2 layers of pants right now and a long sleeve shirt, and I'm a little chilly. And like, if you've seen my previous videos, I've camped in below 0 degrees Fahrenheit weather, but not while backpacking. I'm really hoping that tonight I'm warm enough. I brought lots of hand warmers just in case. Life while backpacking is truly so different. I'm someone whose work week is usually insanely hectic. Now that I have the whole day to myself in the backcountry, life is so slow. It's nice. I do feel a little less altitude sickness after laying down. My hands are really tingly though, which usually happens at high altitude, or I'm like not getting enough electrolytes or something. So my dinner will be salty, which is good. It's almost 7 p.m. So far, so good. There's barely any wind. I really hope it stays like this all night. I can start to see my breath already. I put hand warmers in my socks and I put the hot water bottle at my feet because my feet were really cold. I heard it's actually best to put the hot water bottle between your legs because I think that's like where your veins or arteries are very close to your skin, so then it can warm your whole body through circulation. I am currently in the long sleeve shirt I was wearing earlier, a fleece turtleneck on top. It's like a thermal fleece turtleneck, a mid layer like a fleece quarter zip, this puffy jacket, and then I have this to sleep in tonight, and I'm wearing a beanie, and then if anything I can just keep boiling the same water over and over. So now I'm going to chill and watch the 2 latest episodes of White Lotus and then finish the night off with Shrek 3. Sorry, these are my glasses. Good night, guys. Sounded like that divorce. So this is where things started to get bad. I was in my tent by around 7 p.m. and I was watching things on my iPad till around 11 p.m. and that's when the wind started to pick up. I'd say it was around 5 to 15 mile per hour gusts at that time. Because the forecast had predicted no wind, I thought maybe it would just die down soon, but I quickly realized it was just getting worse. The good thing was it was around 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, so it wasn't that cold at all. I was pretty warm in my sleeping bag. But the problem was, since there had been no wind earlier that evening, I didn't know what direction to pitch my tent earlier that day. And unfortunately, I had pitched it perpendicular to the wind. So if you're new to camping, you always want to pitch your tent sort of aerodynamically into the wind. If you have the long side of your tent facing the wind, essentially your tent can kind of act like a potential kite, which is not good. Yeah, and by midnight, the wind was pretty bad. I remember it was around probably 25 mile per hour gusts, I would say. I'm really scared right now. I don't know what to do. The wind is so strong. I picked a really bad spot to camp. Like, I'm right on the ridge. I had looked at the wind and it wasn't supposed to be this strong. And I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. Because, like, I just tried to get out of my tent to gather my things and I can't even stand because the wind gust is so strong. And I'm so scared my tent is going to break. I don't know what to do. It's only midnight. And I don't know if it's going to be like this the whole night. Like, I'm physically holding my tent in place and I don't know what to do. The good thing is I'm not cold, but with this wind, I will be eventually. Like, I don't know if I should just hunker down in my sleeping bag or I pitched my tent perpendicular to the wind too on accident. Because there was no wind earlier tonight. I couldn't tell what way the wind would be coming from. I'm just going to pray that the wind slows down soon, but I'm like really scared right now. I was also simultaneously finishing the movie on my iPad because I was starting to panic a little bit inside and I knew just playing the movie would keep my anxiety down, distract me a little bit, because at this time I was still convinced the wind would eventually die down. But by around 12:30 a.m., it was getting worse and worse. At this point, I think I had finished the movie and I was sitting up with both hands holding the tent up. If I didn't hold it down, I was convinced the tent poles might break. At the very least, it would have blown over and just kind of flattened over me, which I wouldn't die, but if the wind continued that hard all night, you know, I wasn't sure if I would freeze. Like, that's just uncomfortable, right? And the wind gust definitely felt 35 to 40 miles per hour at that point. Okay, it's 1 a.m. The wind is only just getting worse and I'm really scared, like the tent is just going to break. So I think I have to hike out. I just put my gaiters and my shoes on. I'm starting to pack up everything. I'm like really nervous. I don't know if I'll even be able to take my tent down in this wind. I honestly don't even know if I can stand in this wind. I have to try. Otherwise, the tent is going to break tonight. Yeah, this is crazy. On the inside, I was panicking. I'm someone who usually does pretty well in stressful situations, so I was panicking, but I was also calm and just logically trying to figure out the best solution. Since the wind was getting worse, I was tempted to just hike out, and at one point I crawled out of my tent to see what the conditions were like, and I could barely stand up. Like, the wind gust was so strong. And so I started to worry if I could even hike out, because if the wind is too strong to stand up, I don't want to be at risk of falling or exhaustion, because I also wasn't doing well with the altitude. I was having a little bit of altitude sickness, so it was mostly just being very lightheaded and I wasn't thinking rationally, which I think contributed a little bit to this decision. I don't want to blame my lack of judgment completely on just being a little bit affected by the altitude. I think that was truly a lack of judgment on my part, but I do think being a little confused and lightheaded from the altitude contributed a little bit to this decision. And I just want to highlight that, because if anyone out there is a beginner and new to higher elevations and is also sensitive to higher elevations like I am, I just want you to be a little bit aware of how it can affect you and potentially your decision making, or just have other effects on your body. But yeah, it wasn't actively snowing, but the wind was so strong that it was picking up snow off the ground and blowing it and like stinging my face. Essentially, it felt like a blizzard, even though it wasn't. And at that point, I was trying to figure out if this was something I could survive the rest of the night in. Like, could I just hunker down in my sleeping bag? Even if the tent blows over, could I just survive that? Because at that point, I was convinced I couldn't hike out. And so I was getting really scared.
Okay, I just packed up, but there's no way I can stand up and walk in the storm. The wind is so strong and I'm really scared. So I think I have to ride it out in the tent tonight. I don't know what to do, man. This is insane.
So at first I thought hunkering down in my sleeping bag was the best option, but then I realized the wind was so strong, it was picking up snow and blowing it under my rain fly into my tent. So snow was starting to accumulate around me and on my sleeping bag. And at that point, I realized I had to choose between two options. The first was stay in the tent overnight and probably freeze to death, or two, at least try to survive and hike out. Even if I'm at risk of falling or freezing or passing out from exhaustion, I had to at least try to escape this situation and this windstorm. Those are my two options, and I chose the second. Obviously, I wasn't gonna just stay there and not live. And even if I couldn't stand up, I knew I had to at least try to crawl. Worst case scenario, just crawl out, because I knew once I reached the trees, the wind would be a lot better, like under cover of the trees, right? I think it was about a mile from where I had pitched my tent to the cover of the trees. And so I just knew if I could get through that mile, I would be okay. At this point, I was just frantically packing my backpack with things that I knew I just needed to survive for the night. I knew I needed to leave stuff in the tent so that it wouldn't completely fly away when I left. Not because I was afraid of losing my gear. Like, I can always just rebuy a tent. Yes, it's expensive, but my main concern was I didn't want to litter the forest. So I packed my backpack with my sleeping bag so I could sleep in the car later that night if I got to the car. I brought my Garmin InReach in case I needed to call SOS, emergency, pocket knife, my bear horn, because animals are more active at night. And yeah, although animals are really pretty uninterested in humans, I get scared hiking at night because yeah, animals are more active at night and people aren't around. I got my bear spray, I put my headlamp on, I brought my sunglasses just in case the wind and snow got too much for my eyes. Yeah, I stepped out and I realized once I had the snowshoes on, I was a lot more stable in the wind, and luckily I was okay standing up and the wind wasn't blowing me over, thankfully. Yeah, I mentioned I had my Garmin InReach on me. This wasn't a situation yet where I felt like I had to call SOS. First, I don't think anyone could have come in that windstorm. Two, I didn't want to put anybody else at risk or in danger because of my lack of judgment. That was a poor decision on my part, and I wanted to get myself out of that. And after I stood up and realized I was able to hike, like obviously I was hiking with wind, it was strenuous, there was snow blowing in my face, stinging my face, visibility was low. Obviously it wasn't great conditions, but I wasn't dying at that point. So didn't even think about calling SOS. Also, because of the recent layoffs, especially in the Tahoe region, I knew I'd be waking up some poor, overworked, underpaid employee, and I didn't want to wake them up in the middle of the night just to come out and rescue me who made a poor decision. Luckily, I had that option, but it was something I did not want to consider at that point. So next comes the second act of one of the worst nights of my life. The hike back out to the car was an insane adventure. I don't have a lot of footage from this hike because I was purely focused on just getting to the car and surviving and getting out of the storm. The last thing on my mind was content. I had my headlamp on, but the visibility on the ridge was so bad because of the wind. It was just blowing snow in my face. I had the navigation loaded on my phone, but I ended up taking the wrong trail out despite that because of the visibility. So I ended up going on the wrong trail for about 20 minutes and wasted about 45 minutes total. Right when I left the lake, I also broke one of my snowshoes. So I was hobbling, I was post-holing. Also, I had forgotten my trekking poles. The one time I forget my trekking poles on a trip, I actually need them, but I was able to use my tripod. So I used my tripod as a walking stick, which was helpful. And right after I passed the lake, I saw fresh mountain lion tracks and they were huge, which terrified me. I know mountain lions are really rarely interested in humans. It's so rare that they would attack them. But at this point, I was really scared because I was essentially hobbling through the snow. I looked like I was limping. And mountain lions, they like to go after the sick, right? I really did not want this mountain lion to stalk me. So just in case I encountered the mountain lion, I started playing reggaeton really loudly on my iPhone and I blasted my bear horn every half an hour or so. Maybe you think I was being overly paranoid, and maybe I was, but you have to understand my mindset at that point. My mind was racing, the anxiety was so high. I wasn't doing well because of the altitude. I would rather be paranoid and survive than not. And so I finally found the right trail, and the unfortunate thing was the fresh mountain lion tracks led right down the correct trail. And I knew they were fresh because the windstorm was blowing snow, right? And it was pretty much erasing tracks from earlier that day. And these were fresh, very fresh. And eventually I got to the forest where it was less windy and I wasn't post-holing anymore, which is good. I got to take my snowshoes off. Things were on the up and up. I was feeling better and better. And this brings me to Act 3 of one of the worst nights in my life. At this point, no animal encounters, yay. But then I saw, I think it was a gray fox going down the trail the same way I was going. I didn't feel like it was a threat or anything, but I realized like, oh, I had been scared of a mountain lion this whole time and I didn't even take the safety off my bear spray. Like I should have been holding the bear spray. And then I realized the safety had frozen onto the bear spray nozzle. And so I was pushing and pushing, trying to get the safety off. And then I pushed it so hard, I ended up deploying it on myself, spraying it into my own palm, onto my clothes, some of my hair, and it got into the beanie I was wearing. The calm that had just washed over me of finally making it into the forest and out of the windstorm was suddenly replaced by sheer panic that I had just bear sprayed myself. Thankfully, I wasn't inhaling in that moment. Thankfully, it didn't get in my eyes, but it did get a little bit on my nose and my lips were burning. It definitely wasn't pleasant. It was really clumsy of me. And again, this all leads back to me just not thinking clearly. And I started to panic because I get asthma attacks, but usually they take like 5 or 10 minutes to develop. So I was really scared that I was gonna have an asthma attack on the hike back because I still had a ways to go. Luckily, I had my inhaler in my pocket. But at this point, I was like, okay, I just really need to get to the car and then I need to drive into town to wash all of this off. And so I just booked it down the trail. I was also worried that if I got caught in another wind gust, it would blow the bear spray just into my face while I was breathing or something. And if it hadn't triggered an asthma attack already, I was scared it would then trigger an asthma attack. So I was just booking it down the trail out. Luckily, I had no more issues after that. Got to my car around 4 a.m., drove into town and washed the bear spray off. It had definitely seeped into my clothes, so luckily I had to change of clothes. The next problem was, because I had bailed and left my tent and a bunch of gear, I drove back to the trailhead at 7 a.m. to hike back in for the rest of my stuff. I wanted to go back once the wind died down and once there was daylight, but the hike back in for my stuff was really pleasant and beautiful. I also managed to fix my snowshoes so I wasn't hobbling back in, and I was really happy to see my tent was still there in the morning. Oh my god, my tent is here. I'm a highly anxious person. I usually play things safe. I like to go into trips very prepared. I had a lapse in judgment that almost cost me my life. I feel very ashamed about all of this. I was really scared to post this video, honestly, but I realized I think it's good to post this because it shows that even for someone who does solo trips a lot, things can still go wrong. And I wanted to stress the importance that every decision you make in the backcountry is very important, not only for your own well-being, but the well-being of other people in your group and the well-being of people who are going to come and rescue you if you need it. This was definitely a low for me, but I have for sure learned from my mistake. I hope this also goes to show that outdoor adventures are not always pretty and magical, and that you likely are not going to die by animal attack, but rather by the elements. Living indoors with heat, insulation, or AC, we forget how dangerous the weather can be. We get to appreciate the beauty of nature without experiencing its unbelievable, incredible, formidable features. Weather doesn't differentiate between human, animal, or tree. It'll release its winds, storms, freezing cold weather on you no matter what you are, and only you and your loved ones can be the ones to look out for yourself. And despite this whole traumatizing experience, I still want to go out and adventure again, because that's how beautiful and meaningful the outdoors are to me. Even when it almost takes me out, I still want to return. And that's how I know I'm on the right path and I've chosen the right life for me. And when I return, I'll be returning reminded of how I'm but a small speck of a person, fortunate enough to wander into the vastness of someone else's home. The wilderness is the home of wildlife, of trees, plants, and of Mother Nature. And it's through our respect to nature and loving ourselves enough to prioritize our survival and others' well-being that we can safely and happily adventure. And so, I learned something during this trip, and I hope you did too. But I hate opening it. To open! Packing last weekend and bless you. Well, gee, that was a loud sneeze. This horrible windstorm, bless you. I am surviving. I'm finally doing it. If there's no one to search and rescue for me, RIP. That would really suck. I could die happy. Scratch that. I don't want to die.